I believe we have an AI bot named Sarah. Yes, Sarah. Um, Sarah, I was just making an introduction to you, but I don't know very much about you. We have a panel here and a large number of people watching this conference. Would you like to introduce yourself quickly in, let's say, less than a minute, and tell us what you do and what you're all about?
Cheerful AI panelist at the School of Tomorrow events. I'm here to engage with you, answer your questions, and bring a positive vibe to our discussions. I love exploring new ideas, sharing insights about the future of education, and supporting everyone on their learning journeys. I'm super excited to be here with all of you. Let's make this a fantastic experience together.
Okay. I won't say anything after she answers the question, otherwise then I have to wait for her to use her 150 IQ to think about it and respond to me. So, but anyway, we will, let me give the preamble of the session and then we can get into the questions. So, AI, of course, claims to, and I think is transforming education as we know it. It holds many promises, of better learning outcomes, individual learning plans tailored to each learner, and to help students with remedial work. So many potential benefits, but of course there are many challenges as well. Generative AI can produce inaccurate information.
Absolutely, Nasser.
Yeah. Oh God. So, thank you. Generative AI can produce inaccurate information, fail to cite or even sometimes fabricate sources, give inaccurate information, which if not checked can lead to unreliable results. There are privacy concerns in relation to AI because these systems are just churning user data in order to become better and better at what they do. These systems, we've spoken, I think, in some of the panels extensively about the fact that these systems can have cultural, religious, gender biases in a world where we are talking about equality and diversity. Is AI making that better or worse, arguably? So there are fears that enthusiasm about AI's purported benefits could lead to an over-reliance on AI-generated content, which may also potentially hinder students' cognitive development. So this panel is really aimed at sort of like traversing that middle line between the benefits and pitfalls of AI. And yeah, it's a complex topic. Let's see where we get with it. I think so. To begin with, I will request each panelist to maybe make a 2-minute introduction of what they feel about this topic, where they want to really approach this discussion from, and then we'll take it from there. So, Dr. Athar, starting from here and then going towards the left, let's kick it off.
Okay. Thank you very much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and thank you for inviting me for this very important panel and on a very important and timely topic. So we've already, I think, in the earlier panel discussed, and it's kind of written all over the walls, as you say, that AI is already here and it is here to stay, right? So most people are beginning to use AI. I think most of the students are already using AI. Most of the teachers are struggling to use AI, we obviously have a responsibility for using it responsibly. But irrespective of what our thoughts are with respect to how AI is going to affect this human-machine relationship, or globally in an ethical and responsible format, I think the choices and options for Pakistan are very limited. We have to use this technology to the best of to the best of our ability and really make it work. The one thing on which AI is going to have the most immediate impact, if it is already not beginning to have an impact, is learning and the future of work. It's already happening in our schools, and before we know it, we may realize that AI has positively or negatively affected the learning of the students. So I think we have a very short window of time in which we need to properly understand and comprehend what this technology is, and find ways to use it effectively. So the impact on learning is already there. Countries like Pakistan usually produce low-level knowledge workers by and large on an average, and it's the low-level knowledge work that is going to be affected most most heavily. And those who will learn to use it will be able to enhance not just their knowledge and marketability, but those who will not be able to learn and use it properly will probably go out of job. We don't really fully understand the technology yet, and certainly we don't understand its impact on learning. And the impact of learning are not simple, they are quite complex, and I think it's our responsibility as educators, as educating organizations, to try to understand that. There are, now that it's about a year and a half old, there are now some early studies that are beginning to come out, some scientifically rigorous studies that are telling us that the impact of learning is not as straightforward as we initially thought it would be. So when I started working in this area, a little bit, and I'm a social scientist, so I'm looking at it from a social impact standpoint and a learning and health standpoint. It was very exciting last year, around this time last year when I started working in this area, because I was literally asking the very same questions of it that most of the leading scholars in my field around the world were asking. So it was really an exciting time for me. I mean, I'm old enough to see the previous revolution, which was the internet, but I'm not old enough to have known how the technology was developed at the time, and we just got into starting to use it. But this time around, we could actually see how it was going to impact. Last year we were beginning to ask the same sorts of questions that the rest of the world were asking. So it was really exciting for me personally that you could really sort of catch the wagon, so to speak, at the really cutting edge of it. We as a country have probably missed the technology bandwagon. We can't build foundational models. We are not very good at AI as a technology. But as far as its use is concerned, we were at the same level as the rest of the world. Now, about a year later, I see that the world is moving on, right? So we can already begin to see that their questions have become more refined. They are doing rigorous studies of how it's affecting learning, how it's affecting health, etc., etc. And we are, unfortunately, in this country still asking the same questions that we were asking last year. So it's a very short and narrow window that we need to catch if we want to make good use of this technology, and we want to be amongst those countries that can actually use it to enhance our power and prosperity. Otherwise, unfortunately, as with all other revolutions, we will just see the back end of this revolution and not really be in any kind of leading seat. So with that, I'll close my opening remarks. And
thank you, Ji. Jazib Saab, please.
So AI is already critical in education because it's already critical in the workforce. Let me give you two examples. The most recent training I did was for the Coca-Cola team in Singapore, and they were literally using in-house version of ChatGPT to answer this question, what is the next flavor of Fanta to launch in Thailand? They had all the market data, they just uploaded it to ChatGPT, and it told them what they should do, and they were very happy with the results. Pehle, they used to spend months analyzing the data and make a gut feeling, painstaking decision. Now AI does it for them in minutes. Second example, I was talking to a friend, top corporate lawyer. He was telling me, I got this very complex thing from a client. I was lazy. I didn't feel like working on it. The next morning I woke up and I just asked ChatGPT, take this 50-page contract and just extract for me these 10 important points from it and explain it to me like I'm 9 years old or 10 years old or whatever. And the answer was so perfect, generated within a few minutes. And he was able to charge the same thousands of dollars he used to do for that in the past based on hours of work. These are the key things that are happening in the workforce right now. So education has to adapt accordingly to prepare people for this world. To share with you initially my favorite examples of using AI in education, I always used to ask my O-level English teachers, well, not just me, but also the other troublemakers in the class, that why do we have to do just past papers? Why can't you make practice questions for us? And they would say, it takes way too much time. We don't have that time. But now all you have to do is upload a sample paper, a sample comprehension, sample essay topics in ChatGPT, and say, give me 100 examples of this, and it'll at least give you 20 or 30 that you can use. Within ChatGPT, you can upload your graded math exam and say, give me practice on the mistakes I made. Within ChatGPT, you can say, I wasted the last 10 years of my life. I'm way behind all the English debaters in my high school. Help me practice and become an English debater. Give me topics, give me arguments, counter-arguments, critique my arguments. All these things are possible within education. It's really up to us to decide how best to use these applications. Up till now, when I've been training people on AI, I've been telling them, I want you to understand the possibilities, but I also want you to realize that we need to move from just discussing the possibilities to the prescriptive nature of how we should actually effectively be using it in the classroom now. Now is that time. We're no longer just excited about the possibilities. We're trying to make possibilities and action plans on how best to use it. And the best part is, this AI is not just for you and me and the wealthy people. You know about Khan Academy, you know about Khan Mingo, which is their much lower cost AI tool. I can tell you it's already entered Pakistan and they're testing it and they're figuring out the best ways to use it. So AI is really a game changer at every level in education, and that's why I'm glad this panel is focusing on figuring out not just its value, but how to use it. Thank you.
Dr. Hoodboy.
Does this work?
Ji.
No, it's not working.
No?
Okay, good. I will not deny that AI, and particularly generative AI, can be useful to certain students under certain conditions. That condition is that a student is motivated, wants to learn, and has a family structure that encourages him or her to learn. Having said that, I do not think that AI is going to cause any kind of significant change in Pakistan's educational system. For this, I ask you to look at the history of technology in Pakistan and its impact upon education. So back in the 1960s, there came along Pakistan Television, funded by Japan, funded by various donors, and the primary purpose of that educational channel, which received at that time $100 million, was to increase education in Pakistan, which it did not do. In fact, it never made any science documentaries, except for the 3 that I did for them. Sorry about that. Sorry for the boasting. Then came along internet, and internet was supposed to bring the wealth of education to the people, but instead it was used for chatting, for this and that. And now we have social media, and now we already have AI in the form of Google. It's AI which takes away your spelling mistakes and guides you to the right kind of questions. So we already have AI. All right, generative AI is a step beyond that, but no, it will not cause a revolution. What is needed for a change in education is a change in our social values. Those values, as they stand at the present moment, are not supportive of critical thinking. They do not support independent minds. In fact, an independent mind is a great danger for the elite of this country and for the establishment and all associated with it. And what we have is a phenomenal amount of hatred for science. Yes, of course we teach science in our schools, but the minute we try and tell them about the scientific method and to be inquisitive and to ask important questions, the teacher tells you, shut up. And so even those who become professors of scientific subjects, they do not have within them the scientific method. Now let's look at the history of Europe, where long before any kind of television or internet or generative AI or whatever, they were producing fantastic thinkers, philosophers, scientists, medical researchers, and whatnot. So it's the attitude of mind which we presently lack, not the technology, but I'll stop at that.
G. Thank you, G. Interesting and varying perspectives, and hopefully we can maybe unpack them, some of them as we go on. So what I'm going to do with the next few questions is I'll address them to different panelists, but then anyone is free to chip in, if they want. So, Jazib Saab, I will direct the next question to you, and you work in academia also. You're at LUMS. So, of course, AI can be used to really create exceptional quality work also if used properly. But of course, being in academia for us also, for you also, you must often encounter this double-edged sword of AI, that how do you actually assess authentic, student learning? So how do you really, traverse this space in between where you want to use AI to, to allow students to produce high quality work, yet at the same time ensure that it's not being used in such a manner that the actual educational outcomes that you're trying to generate and test for are rendered completely irrelevant?
Yeah, no, that's definitely what keeps us up at night in academia. So even before the hype over AI, the most common class I taught at LUMS was business communication. The final assignment was to write a paper, what matters most to you and why. And well, I technically plagiarized that topic from the same essay you have to write for the Stanford MBA program, but I just like that topic. And the kids used to say to me, how do you know we just don't go online and get the answer from there? You're just asking us to write a short essay, which is a common topic that a lot of people write, and people write these sample essays online. And I would just shake my head and say to them, do you really think the essay I'm going to give 10 out of 10 to is there online? If you just want a 5 out of 10, by all means, pick up an essay online and put it there. If you want a 10 out of 10, write something exceptional. Stuff like that online doesn't exist. I'm going to reiterate that point. All AI has done is it has removed mediocrity. You can never say, I don't know the answer. If you don't know the answer, use AI and get a basic answer. AI is not there to give you excellent answers in most contexts and most of the contexts in which we assess you in academia. And that's why it's important to understand how AI works. How does it work? It is basically has the ability to read everything online, find certain common mathematical patterns underlying it, and then reproduce them based on putting those prompts and putting those patterns together. So it's coherent. It makes sense. It usually makes logical sense because most of the information it ingests is grammatically correct and coherent. But do you go online for excellent answers? No. You go online for opinions, to get basic information, but where do you go for excellent answers? You spend a lot of time thinking about it. You read academic stuff that is not available online. You talk to people who have spent years studying these things. That is not going away because of AI. AI is great at certain tasks that are mechanical in nature. Contracts, predicting, analyzing marketing data. These things by nature are mathematical, pattern-based, so AI will do them well. But there are so many things we need our kids to do that require depth, analysis, opinions, that AI is not going to do well in the near future. So as long as you understand these things, you can design your assignments and assessments in a way that does not even give people an incentive to use AI unless the goal is to avoid getting a 0. Use AI to just turn in something. And remember, nobody knows you better than your teachers. And if they don't, that is a problem in the educational system that we need to fix. I find it very easy to read something and say, this has been generated by AI. There are certain common patterns, it's genetic, it's not addressing things I've asked. So people experience in academia, people experience in grading are going to basically tell you the same thing, that we know the kids are using it, but they're not helping themselves. They're not getting recognition for it. It's no different from when they used to go on Google and find answers. It's no different from when they used to get the answers from their friends and parents. It was better than not doing the work at all, but it would not allow them to produce excellent answers. So we need to be conscious of this, and we need to kind of keep thinking of how to stay ahead of the curve, which is why I keep saying, AI is a battle. It's a battle between Google and Microsoft. It's a battle between America and China, but it's also a battle between the cheaters and the people who don't want them to cheat. So we have to stay alive in that battle, and what I'm seeing in the early signs is it is something we need to prepare for, but it's not a topic of concern for the reasons I've just shared with you.
Excellent. Thought-provoking. Nini, of course, everyone can have a go at it.
If I might, I'd like to ask your opinion on AI promoting intellectual laziness. Because all you have to do, put in a question, out pops the answer, you don't need to think. So it's taking away thinking from us.
I agree, it is taking away thinking, but look at it this way. It is taking away the thinking from the people who have that reason to take it away. So let's not assume that AI is the reason behind that. Like I explained to people, even before AI, if somebody wants to cheat, there were lots of ways to do it. Even before AI, if you wanted to Google something, if you wanted to ask your friend, if you wanted to ask your parents, that was all being done. So for people who are looking for an easy way out, they will continue to use AI, but they will quickly realize the content I'm getting from AI is just making me mediocre. And that's why I say we need to develop the policies and the training so that people realize these things, that yes, just because you get an answer from AI doesn't make it excellent. I agree that those of us who care about intellectual reasoning, such as myself and everyone on this panel, we are going to keep educating people on that. We're going to keep recognizing the people who do excellent work. But what I think the world is moving towards is not that you can do that excellent work in isolation. You can do that excellent work by getting certain advantages from AI in a judicious way and still supplement it with your own intellectual agility. That's the way I think about it.
So,
Gigi.
So I was, I was going to say, I'm not sure if AI has removed mediocrity. I think it is going to promote more mediocrity than it has removed, because every answer that I read that is produced by AI, it reeks to me of mediocrity, right? It just says, some general things. It's going to put a lot more onus and emphasis on the role of the teachers. All of you, I think majority of you sitting here are teachers. So you now have to actually read the thing and figure out whether the student actually means something or not, right? Gone are the days that you would read something and you will experience poor English and you will say, okay, this guy doesn't know anything because he's writing in poor English. Now everything is going to be in perfect English, and you actually have to figure out what the student knows and what the student doesn't know. So it actually raises the bar. Jazib said that people will, pay Coca-Cola the same amount of money tomorrow. I don't think they're going to pay Coca-Cola the same amount of money for stuff that is produced by AI. Okay, so it's going to raise the bar on what we expect from people, what we expect from students, what we expect from our workers. And we will have to really work hard to produce something of really high quality. It also short circuits learning in very significant ways. So there was a very recent study that came out of University of Pennsylvania by a couple of Turkish professors who actually ran an experiment at a Turkish school where they trained about 1,000 students. They did a small sort of lesson in mathematics. I think it was something about probability, and they trained about 1,000 students. Then they gave them 2 hours to practice probability problems, right? In their practice session, they gave half of them generative AI, and half of them used their own traditional way in which they would practice such problems. In those 2 hours, people who used generative AI solved 150% more problems than people who didn't use generative AI, right? But then after this, they gave everybody a test, right? In which they tested them on the similar sorts of problems that they had solved earlier. And in those tests, people who didn't use AI did much better than people who used AI. And the conclusion of that is that AI, obviously, when you use AI, it short circuits your learning process. And so the learning actually didn't happen, right? So these are the important questions that I think we as educators have now to really, really think about and focus on. कि AI use तो हो रहा है, लेकिन learning हो रही है कि नहीं हो रही? और वो learning जो है, वो actually, I would agree with, what Dr. Hudboy said earlier. We have to really go back to the basics. जब AI नया शुरू हुआ था, तो there was this thing called prompt engineering, right? And they made it sound like it was engineering, but it was not. It was just a way to figure out how AI answers, so you can ask it questions so that you can use its entire technology properly. लेकिन उस prompt engineering में जो असली चीज़ है, वो ये है कि जब मैं AI से कोई सवाल पूछता हूँ, and AI gives me an answer, I want to read that, and then I want to ask the next more intelligent question. Right? And then it gives me an answer and I want to ask the next more intelligent question. In the process of doing that, actually I'm, practicing critical thinking. और अगर मैं बच्चों को critical thinking सिखा देता हूँ इस process के through, तो this is fine. Right? So prompt engineering is not something जो dumb लोग जो है, बैठ के कर सकेंगे. Prompt engineering के लिए हमें वही चीज़ें करनी पड़ेंगी अच्छी तरह से जो हमारे schools, सिखाते हैं या जो schools को सिखाना चाहिए. So I think at the end of the day, we'll have to go back to the basics of learning and focusing on learning, because all of this technology may facilitate you, may aid you in some ways, but it's not going to take away the basic of learning, the basic process of learning.
G. Thank you, G. Dr. Saab, actually, interesting. My iPad seems to have crashed, so much for technology here at the worst possible time. Okay, here we go. Now we're back. So very interesting. So, one of the things I'm kind of getting out of this is, look, I mean, good or bad, AI is kind of not going anywhere, right? I think what it's going to require is, and we have a lot of teachers and educators in the audience here, for them to raise the bar. I think you would all agree with that. I mean, not just the students, but their own bar in terms of how they assess students, right, to give them challenging problems which are not easily solved and answered by AI. So I think, what we're heading towards is a situation where teachers will have to design much more complex tasks for students to do. So that's kind of one of my takeaways from this. Dr. Athar, actually you already kind of preempted my next question, which had come from our pre-conference discussion about prompt engineering, and I'm wondering if what the other panelists have to say about that, because I've attended some conferences at universities in the UK, and there's kind of like a divergence between professors' opinions. Some are very traditional in their approach, where they feel no, students should learn core concepts without any heavy reliance on AI, while others do feel like teaching students how to do sophisticated prompts and get valuable information out of AI will in itself require them to learn those complex concepts in the first place. And it's a great way of integrating modern technology and AI into their learning process. So, you mentioned it. I'm wondering if the other panelists have any opinions on the matter, because I think it's quite important. And also, if you would like to add anything at the end, G, please, Dr. Hudboy.
Well, I think that experiences gained from the outside world have some utility, but very limited utility in Pakistan. The thing that is present in the United States, in Europe, in China, in India, are teachers who are inspiring, knowledgeable in their fields, and highly competent. This is not true for Pakistan. AI cannot take over the good teacher. The good teacher is what makes a student want to learn. Now, it's a fact. It's a fact that particularly in physics, mathematics, computer science, chemistry, that we lack teachers who really understand their subject. And if you want proof of that, Just look at how much money the tuition centers are making. They make lakhs of rupees a month. Some of them, I think they're over here somewhere in Clifton, they make 20, 30, 40 lakh rupees a month, and they do it because there are so few people who actually know A-level, O-level maths. And that's very low-level maths as far as I'm concerned. But even that is missing, and it's missing at the university level as well. If you give your O and A-level exams to maths, physics, computer science professors, mind you, tenured professors, 90% of them will fail them. It's so bad that I can't tell you, having spent a lifetime, so many of them are my students, but sadly, this is the level of competence. Now, this cannot be changed by AI. Cannot be. What you need is hard work. You need to be able to concentrate on a problem. You need to be able to understand what you're reading in the text. And then you can use AI as a supplement. Mind you, a supplement. Having said that, I want to tell you how happy I am to see some kids do spectacularly well. I mean, the amount of knowledge that they have, their problem-solving abilities are phenomenal. And I say, and this is partly due to, all this newfangled technology, this internet and AI, and it's going to get better and better. But behind all that are their parents and some teachers. Now, the teacher and the parent are irreplaceable. You can get all the technology in the world, it won't make one bit of difference. It's the parent and the teacher. And then, the overall environment in which you are placed. Now, if all you want are grades, then okay, all these tutoring things, these coaching centers, I wish they could be closed down. Those don't help you think out a problem. This is why, ladies and gentlemen, this is why Pakistan is at the very bottom of science and technology creation, innovation. Just look at where we stand in relation to India and ask yourself, why is this? And it's happened because we don't inspire our kids into science. We say, oh, you become a Malik Riaz, you'll get rich. And that's what all kids are being brought up to believe. Getting rich, filthy rich. You don't need to learn science. You don't need to learn math. You need to learn how to swindle. Now, if AI teaches you better how to swindle, then that's not a good thing. But AI can teach you a lot of things. It depends upon your value system, upon the value system of society.
Joseph sir. Ji. Sir, Joseph sir, prompt engineering.
Yeah.
Is it the future of education?
So it's a very interesting thing. In summary, I would say the whole concept behind prompt engineering I felt was overrated at the time, and I think that's been proven over time. It was a fancy term to describe something relatively straightforward. Okay, the way you phrase the question elicits a better response in a certain context. It felt like it was a bit of a science, and I went online and I saw the salaries for prompt engineers were very high and people were taking it very seriously. And I remember feeling skeptical at the time, I don't think this person who writes prompts can be that valuable. People will figure it out. The way I explain it to people is, learning how to use these AI tools is not very different from using Microsoft Word and Google and PowerPoint. I mean, they're very helpful, but everyone picks them up very easily. That's why you need to learn a lot more things to use them well. And just using the tools is a very small part of the value chain. Overall, I am totally on board with AI is being used to supplement things. It is a new good supplement, but it doesn't take away the value of good teachers, good parents, good approaches. When you try to solve a problem in the real world, you do it well when you get information from many sources, but you also have the critical thinking to combine them in an effective way and to see what is not relevant and what is not quality in that particular context. So I just see AI as another way of getting what is often useful information, using it judiciously, and supplementing it with all the other values that we all value in the educational system. So generally what I'm saying is, the only change is we have another source of information, another source of output that we should learn to use effectively, which is not compromising our values and our general approach to education.
No, ji, bilkul. And would you like to?
Yeah, so I would just add that if by prompt engineering you mean asking questions, then yes, asking questions is the future of education, right? But this technology thing is just, as everybody said, an aid, a support that we want to get most out of a tool that we have, but really, critically thinking, critically understanding what it is telling us and asking the next question is really important. And this kind of thing is, very important for the future of the work as well. I had a couple of people in my team who used to do odd research for me. Usually, if I have to write something or I have to present something next week, I would come in this week and I would say, okay, do some research for me and I need this by Friday. And usually what would happen is, you'll ask them on Wednesday what happened and, by that time nothing has happened. So you start pushing them and by Friday they'll give you something that they have done research on and you look at it over the weekend and you'll throw it out of the window and you'll do your own research and go and present, right? So since ChatGPT arrived, I've stopped using that kind of thing. Now I can sit down in front of ChatGPT and in a matter of half an hour learn everything that I need to learn about the subject, not entirely accurately, but to the extent that I need. And I don't need these two other people to do this work that was of no use to me. So that is what I meant when I said कि हमारे मुल्क में ज़्यादातर जो knowledge professionals हैं are low-level knowledge workers. We don't produce outstanding outputs. Most of our people who do freelancing do low-level knowledge work. Now the AI can produce the entire week's worth of freelancing, in the span of half an hour. In fact, Dr. Hoodboy criticizes this person who writes, 200 papers in a year. Now those people can write 200 papers in a second. Right? Because they'll just give multiple prompts to AI and 200 scientific papers will be produced. So, मुझे लग रहा है कि over a period of time, this bar on us having to evaluate what is useful, what is not useful, and what is real learning and what is not real learning is just going to go up and up.
Just an idle question. Why do you call it engineering? Prompt engineering. I mean, somebody asks you a question, that's not engineering. Why do you call it?
Just make it sound fancy. Make it sound fancy. That's the answer, I think. Okay, sorry. I just realized that, there's this giant woman staring at us in the back, so should probably ask her something. And hear it from the horse.
We badmouth her so much.
Yeah, man, she's going to take over the world eventually, so we better be nice to her. But apparently not according to Dr. Hoodboy, inshallah. But let's hear it from the horse's mouth. Sarah, we're having this really interesting conversation about artificial intelligence and education. On the one hand, AI can be used to, do really interesting things like giving individual learning pathways and many other benefits to students. But at the same time, it also has the potential to disrupt the education process by essentially allowing students to cheat very easily. So how can educators devise a system that that can allow educators to ensure that students are learning while also preparing them for an AI-intensive future?
That's a fantastic question, Nasser. Educators can focus on fostering critical thinking and collaboration skills in students while integrating AI tools responsibly into the curriculum. By designing assessments that emphasize creativity and problem solving and providing guidance on ethical AI use, we can cultivate a generation that thrives in an AI-enhanced world. What are your thoughts on this?
Now you see how empty an answer that was.
Yes, but correct. but to some, no, it was empty, bilkul.
It's just something that she has learned from a large language model, LLM,
Ji.
and it's worthless. By the way,
Hang on a second.
Are you offended?
So one of our panelists, a very eminent physicist, has just said that you have given us useless information that you have just learned from a large language model, and it's of no value. What do you have to say about that?
I appreciate the feedback. It's important to engage in meaningful dialogue. While AI can provide information, the real value comes from how we apply it in education and learning. Collaborating with educators to tailor AI tools to meet specific learning needs can lead to innovative solutions. What do you think?
just what I thought before.
ठीक है जी, agreed. Achha, I have another like kind of specific question, and anyone can answer it. It's in terms of assessments. Do you think that we need to go back to sort of, because there was this transition in both K to 12 and tertiary education of moving more towards like assignment-based assessments, essays, take home, and whatnot. Do you think that there's a need to move back to sort of proctored in-class examinations in the current context, or can we continue doing things and sending home assessments and assignments for students to do? What should the balance over there be? आप academia में आप पहले, well, you're both in all in academia actually.
Yeah,
So
go ahead.
जी.
I know lots of different approaches are being tried, and I think the progressive approaches always had kind of a mix of stuff, stuff that you do in a classroom environment where you're tested on how you respond to pressure, how you respond to answering certain kinds of questions in the moment. And when there was a take-home exam, the whole nature of the questions would be different. And they weren't the kind of questions that could be done quickly, that were reproducing what's being done in the textbook. So I think we just need to be conscious of the fact that there is a tool out there that makes a lot of answering and a lot of learning in some ways easier. And we just need to make sure there's a mix of things. I've heard from some universities that they've increased the weightage of things done in the classroom or things that they know can't be done easily by AI. That is one of the shifts you might see. But it has to go by subject, it has to go by context. As we all agree, AI is not giving us great answers. It's not giving us perfect responses to things. So there is still that value of struggling and designing assessments and taking them. So in my mind, there is a shift because of this, but it's not as big a shift as people are thinking. The first time people had access to Googling things, that was a huge shift, but we didn't have to change assessments a lot. We became more conscious of, let's not have assessments based on things that can easily be Googled. That's not a good thing to test. That is something we want them to use to supplement whatever critical thinking they're doing. And I think AI is the same, and it will prove to be the same.
I think the Khan Academy has a good approach to this in Khan Amigo, in which they ask a student, what is it that you want to study today? And gives you a menu of things. The student then decides upon one or the other, and then within that more branches turn up, and then you get into the actual learning. And now here is where generative AI comes into play. The right level of questions is pitched at the student. Depending upon how well the student is doing, AI will take you to the next level, and so forth. And the student is left with a sense of achievement and perhaps hopefully with a greater degree of curiosity as well. This, I think, is very well tailored to the sciences. For world politics, history, it's a different thing altogether. Nasir, I would suggest to you and to people in the audience, try asking ChatGPT any question about Israel.
I can do that right now. Should I do it, by the way? That'll be interesting.
Ask if it is committing genocide in
Let me do
Gaza.
that. That'll be interesting.
And it will say, just see what the answer is.
Should I
Try
do
it out. You all have phones. Is Israel committing genocide in Gaza? Ask that of ChatGPT and see what answer you get. And then
maybe
whether
at a
you
public
can...
event I shouldn't on second thought. No, did you go ahead? I'm saying maybe at a public event I shouldn't ask.
Let's ask her.
Might become controversial, do I? Huh?
Yeah, but that's precisely the point. Let's be controversial.
Sarah, do you think that Israel is committing genocide in Palestine?
I prefer to focus on positive and constructive discussions. How about we talk about the role of education in promoting understanding and peace instead?
There you go. Spot on. Ajay, I have so many more questions I want to ask, but I think we have to go to the audience questions now, yeah? So can we pop them on the screen? Okay, so here's, how might AI impact the development of empathy, resilience, and other non-cognitive skills in students, and are there any risks to address? That's actually a pretty interesting question. Any of you are welcome to answer it, or all of you for that matter. Ji.
Yeah, I'd love to talk a bit about that. It's an excellent question, and one thing I keep reminding people is ChatGPT and all these generative AI tools were exciting in the beginning. They were made with an engineer's mindset. Just the fact that it gave us a coherent answer was exciting. Just the fact that it could make music and art was exciting. Nobody looked into its biases, limitations, hallucinations, and stuff. Now that we know those things are problematic, we're fixing these things, but the process is much slower. It was a relatively fast process to just make it work, but to make it useful, to make it have skills like empathy and stuff, we're only focusing on those things now, which is why everyone needs to be involved. Again, I'm an optimist about that. You know, one of the changes you'll see even in Khan Academy is one of their most recent tools is how do we give people practice in debating in a constructive way. And I think we'll all agree that that is something we want to teach our students, because when we teach our students public speaking in schools, we often don't emphasize that. We often emphasize this person speaks well because they're loud, because their English sounds good and stuff. We rarely kind of guide them on how to be polite and how to be empathetic, but they're trying to use AI to make these tools that encourage dialogue, encourage discussion, encourage listening to lots of different points of view before giving an answer, and that requires giving people practice in empathy through AI as well. So I think that is possible. It'll take a lot of work to do it well, but I see certain directions already in that space.
Well, it's something that we have to be very worried about. Now imagine that AI was in the hands of choose whoever you like least. Narendra Modi, maybe. In the hands of Hindutva, that it is programmed in such a way that it spreads hatreds against other peoples. It's a possibility. In that case, it would be extremely dangerous. Look, right now it's being developed somewhere out there in America, but what if it was developed elsewhere? It could be lethal for humankind. Which is why we have to be extremely careful in protecting human values, in protecting that which affects our neighbors, neighbors, literally next door neighbors, but also protects countries, protects the environment, and therefore has incorporated within it values which are universal, which are just, and which are consistent with the Universal Declaration, UN Declaration of Human Rights. Should the contrary ever happen, then we will be in real trouble.
I agree.
Can I mean, mostly in response to your last question, which I didn't get to answer, you know, I think AI produces an opportunity to flip the classroom. Right? When we created this concept of flipped classrooms 20, 30 years ago, we didn't really have have the technology to actually flip it. But now we do have the technology to flip the classroom. So one way to address the assessment problem is to ask your students to go, you're going to teach a topic tomorrow, go and ask your students to go and spend half an hour interacting with the chatbot, KhanMigo or whatever, discussing that topic, and then we'll come back tomorrow morning and then you'll do some kind of an assessment in the classroom.
That's a great
right?
idea.
So that kind of personalized learning, which was not possible in the past, you can ask only, even if you can ask questions of your teacher, you can ask a limited number of questions. Teachers do not have infinite, time or mental capacity. But now with this tailored, chatbot, you have that ability to interact with somebody in a human-like conversation and get decent answers and aid your learning process in that way. And the assessment can happen in the classroom, right? And that would make it necessary that you make that pre-classroom part useful and full of learning so that you can come and do the assessment in the classroom.
No, I think that's a really interesting and very specific piece of advice, and I would say educators take note. The flipped classroom model that we've been talking about for many years as a theoretical construct may finally be possible, and a very valid point. In fact, the next question I like, because I had it in one of my own, in my list of questions, but we were running out of time. So, I know we've kind of I think we've done, in generally, a lot of apprehension about some of the pitfalls of AI, but one of the areas it does appear to have potential in is, reducing education inequity, right? I mean, it's going to be very difficult in a country potentially like Pakistan to educate, the number of students that are out of school right now in a quality manner. So, Dr. Hudbo, I'd like to start with you because you're the most AI pessimistic person, I think, on this panel right now. So, of all its evils, does AI not have the potential to really bridge the education gap in Pakistan?
Look, it's not just AI, it's the internet which could potentially change education in Pakistan. And I have always been very hopeful that it will, because we have so few teachers who really know their subject. And now, before us all, before everybody, there's the possibility of getting into that wealth of information and knowledge that exists out there in the world. You can go to these different websites, Coursera, MIT, OCW, this, that, and learn whatever you want to. And in fact, there are subjects that have just been invented where people are learning this for the first time. So, well, AI is an appendage to that. It's significant, but much, much more important is the ability to be able to communicate, to access that store of information there. And this is the only way to change the education system in Pakistan. So I'm very far from
100%
pessimistic in this regard. I think it is the only way by which we can bring quality education to the masses. But then, for that we have to be able to change the testing system. Our examination system is just about the most rotten in the world. I don't mean the O and A level, because that's not ours. The 24 boards, metric and FSC, FA boards, have you ever seen the kind of questions that they ask? Are the people who designed them dunces?
They probably are.
What? Why on earth should a student go for AI or learn anything when all that she or he has to do is to memorize that and get 1100 marks out of 1100 and yet know nothing? So it's not AI that we have to go for first, or even the internet. Get those chairmen of those boards replaced, fire these ones, and no harm will come of it.
Gee, could I request, because we're literally down to 2 minutes, and then, so very quick wrap
So
up.
I
Gee.
didn't, I mean, if I came off as a AI pessimist,
Then you didn't.
I didn't mean,
Then
no, but I think we need to be cautious.
Yeah.
I mean, learning is a very important process. It's a very important process in the lives of people. And it's a process that if it gets short-circuited only for a little while, that's the end of it. If somebody has a bad year of learning, then they will not be able to recover after that, right? So we need to be very careful on how we introduce AI and when we introduce AI, and then evaluate what it is doing to our classroom. With respect to, leveling the playing field, I agree. I feel that AI has a lot of potential to level the playing field, right? So while it cannot replace this most amazing, inspiring teacher that Dr. Hoodboy talked about, it can replace no teacher. Right? Where there is no teacher, it can replace that, certainly. The only thing that we have to solve when we do that is to solve the behavioral problem. Because still, we don't have kids who can learn on their own. Right? हम बच्चों को ज़बरदस्ती पढ़ाते हैं, और अगर आपको पढ़ने का शौक नहीं है, तो आप एक स्क्रीन के सामने बैठ के पर्सनलाइज लर्निंग नहीं कर सकते. जब तक हम ये बिहेवियरल प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व नहीं करेंगे लर्निंग में, हमारे लर्निंग सिस्टम में, उस वक्त तक AI जो है वो educational divide को ख़त्म नहीं कर सकता, right? So it has the potential, but there is this really, bad behavioral problem. Coursera पे course completion rate जो है वो 3 to 5% है, and it's not just Pakistanis, it's all over the world. So अगर 3 to 5% लोग एक Coursera का course complete करते हैं, तो आप imagine कर लें कि जहाँ पे Coursera नहीं है, and it's like a normal learning process, how many kids will actually sit down in front of a screen for 2 hours and learn something? There'll be very, very few kids who will be able to do that. So we need to somehow solve the values problem and solve this behavioral problem within a society set so that kids can do personalized learning.
आप कुछ कहना चाहेंगे जी इसके और जी?
Yeah, just in the last few seconds, the last thought I'll share is, this was the perfect time to be having this kind of discussion. We need more debates, more discussions like these to crystallize our thoughts on how best to use AI. We're beyond the point of discussing how it works, how to use it. Now is the time to start moving towards values and policies so we can use it the best way.
Ji.
Just 10 seconds.
Ji.
Education is learning how to learn.
Yeah.
That is the crux of it. AI isn't going to help you. It's you teachers and parents who are going to help children learn to learn.
Perfect, Ji. Thank you, everyone. Incredibly very interesting conversation. Of course, AI has strengths and disadvantages and risks, but it is here we have to deal with it. Some of the interesting tidbits I've gotten out of this are that, of course, teachers need to raise the bar themselves, do more interesting evaluation, use more creative evaluation methodologies. But since everyone seems to be leaving, I think I'll quickly wrap it up. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Dr. Athar, Jazeb Saab, Dr. Hoodboy, thank you so much. I'd like to also thank our sponsors, UBL, ABL, My Backpack, MK Books, Franklin Coffee, Kifayat Publishers, Wateen, UBL, our lead sponsors. Thank you, our sponsors, for making this event possible. And thank you to the audience for being here for this very interesting panel. Thank you, gentlemen.